Hi, Editor Lee here. Now, our conversation with Roger starts a little bit abruptly because we got some pretty good content before I was able to actually introduce him formally. So that's the first thing that you'll hear. What I ask is, are you excited to go to an active construction site? And I say that because at the time, Roger was about to go to his first game in his journey, which was Vanderbilt against Hawaii, Hawaii going to Vanderbilt in Nashville, and Vanderbilt Stadium is still currently under remodeling while they're playing games inside of it. So that's the first thing I ask them. Just a quick editor's note so that it would make a little more sense. Okay, great. Here's the interview. How often do you get to visit an active construction site like you will tomorrow?
Dude, I'm
You
so
know?
excited. I'm so curious to see how much that stadium is actually built. I'm hoping that there are like, you know, dumpsters and construction vehicles just scooping excavators just like going during the game like on critical third downs.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I need like a jackhammer going off like right before a kicker takes a vital field goal.
For the opposing team, I mean, might as well take advantage of the fact that your stadium is an active construction zone. Like if other teams are allowed to make like weird mascot noises ahead of a big third down, why can't Vanderbilt just decide to do some detonations for their whatever they're building? I'm actually not even
Yeah.
100% sure what they're building.
I more seats.
More
I don't know because
seats.
it's kind of like if you look at the picture, it's like 80% surrounded by seats, and then it's just nothing. So Kathleen, right now, Vanderbilt's building like a new stadium,
Yeah.
in
And the
Nashville, and
game
it's
is
like,
tomorrow.
and the game's
Right.
tomorrow, and it's not particularly close to being done either.
Yeah,
Classic.
I mean, because clearly they need clearly the one thing I always think about Vanderbilt football is, wow, they need more seats. Like this stadium
They
needs to
can't
be at
contain
least
them.
80,000 fans for Vandy football.
I think that's what they've been lacking. Like they're like, if James Franklin had that stadium, like, I think he might win an SEC title. I think
The Vandy dynasty, the
people
Van
are saying.
dynasty. You can one word it.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we could just go ahead and start now.
Yeah,
Guys,
you can use some of that. That was we had good content.
All
There.
right. No, I will. That was great. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So, you're actually the first guest we've ever had. So
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna go on the fly.
I,
Yeah.
Can I get like a plaque?
Absolutely.
Once are you wearing a home field shirt
I am.
right now? Because
Yes.
I am. Yeah.
Well,
I got my Miami Hurricanes.
Are you
Dang, I
a
missed the
are
memo,
you a
guys.
Canes guy or?
Yeah, so I'm one of the few people like the middle of the Venn diagram where I grew up a Miami fan, but I'm a Florida State graduate because I couldn't get into Miami.
Were you just like very unpopular?
Yes, yes, I was.
Yeah, basically. When it came to that, basically.
And
So,
so part of the interesting, so I'm doing this project. I'm going around the country. I'm going to all the different stadiums, all these ones I've never been to. And that's sort of an interesting thing because, like, Florida State seems to have a very active, crowd environment. And Miami, they play in an NFL stadium.
Right.
Roger? Are you
And they
saying
bus
that?
their students there. You got to take a bus. I went to my cousin. My cousin graduated from Miami, and I went there for a game day. And it like the stadium's so far away from campus, so you have to like be bused. I think it's like an hour to get there.
Yeah.
So
Coral Gables
it's just not as easy.
It's nowhere near. I forget what the name of the like municipality that Hard Rock is in, but it's nowhere near it.
Yeah.
No, I'm allowed to say these things because I come from a Miami family. My
Wow.
my family is of Jewish and Cuban descent, and my aunt Roslyn claims to have helped Vinny Testaverde cheat in math class, and that's like
Nice.
so. Like I think you can really say that the entire like the U like the early 90s and eventually into the 2001 hurricanes. That doesn't happen without Roslin.
Wow. That's a hell of a butterfly effect, isn't it?
Yeah, because if Vinny Testaverde fails those math classes, who knows what happens to Miami? It would be the biggest scandal in Miami football history for sure. They haven't had anything
Wow.
else on that
I
level.
mean, yeah. Miami certainly, and especially in the 80s, 90s, that was not a place you went to play school. You know,
Yeah, no.
it just wasn't. Anyway, so Rodger Sherman, thank you so much for joining us. Formerly of SB Nation in the Ringer. As you talked about just a little bit a second ago, you quit your job at the Ringer
Yes.
about a week ago today. Is that right?
Last Friday was my last day. Yeah.
Yes. So, and then a couple of days later, you announced your new project, Road Rodge. They can follow you on Twitter at Rodger.
Yes.
Great at, by the way.
Very lucky that my name was misspelled. A real boon to my the bane of my existence until internet handles became available. For most of my life, I was just mad that there was a weird extra letter in my name.
Now it's your secret weapon.
Now it's my secret weapon. Now I can get Rodger at Rodger. And meanwhile, you guys
awesome.
have to I'm sure that
Jump through hoops.
yeah.
Even for the Lean Show, we were can't get more original than that. But yeah, we had to do some doctoring to get some of our handles up too.
Yeah, I think there was a Twitter account from 12 years ago that was at the Lean Show that hadn't tweeted since 2012, and it's dude, and then we couldn't get the Twitter, so I think our Twitter is something ridiculous. We'll probably start using it now, but we really focus on the Gen Z social medias. Not that Twitter isn't, but TikTok and Instagram. But anyway. Thank you so much for coming on. So I guess the first question that I had was, you're a very experienced college sports writer, basketball and football. But one of the things you said in your announcement video was that there's a lot of college football, the things that make it so special that you haven't experienced in person. I think you cited SEC rivalry games as one of the things.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it didn't come across as oh, my companies didn't send me to these things, because it's pretty common in this day and age for a blogger to cover these games and to have a job but to not actually go to the games. So that's what I've been doing. I've been kind of just watching the games and writing about them from my house, and like I was just saying, the stadium atmospheres and the cultures are so unique, and that's kind of why I wanted to give this a shot, to go see it and to get a better understanding for the sport that I've been writing about for so long.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess the question would be, as of right now, before you experience SEC rivalry games, construction sites in Vanderbilt, etc., whatever. What is it that makes college football so special to you? What's specifically about? It's got a lot of unique aspects to it. The size of the sport, how many teams there are, the craziness. I think the classic. I don't know if it's a Bud Elliott quote or not, but it's the stupidest thing will be the thing that always happens in college football. The most ridiculous outcome is the most common one. So what is it about this sport that draws you in so much?
You're hitting on all the factors. One is just the complete absurdity of it. That's it very, you can know who's going to win the national championship, but you'll never quite understand the way that it's going to get there. And I think when you talk about the size of the sport, each of those teams is different. And I find that I can talk to someone, and if I know what college football team they care about, I already know 8 things about them.
Sure.
Just things they care about, things they value, things that they will get extremely angry if I bring up. Um, and that's true to a certain extent in other sports, but like in college football, people really value like X thing about their school, like this, like the thing that makes it different from the other team across the state. Like, and even though, you know, they might have grown up in the same place, they think that they're different in this way, in this way, in that way. And like, when you deal with pro sports, it doesn't really have that aspect. It's sort of just like if you're from, you know, Milwaukee, you like the team from Milwaukee, and if you're from Cincinnati, you like the team from Cincinnati. It's not like there's this like in state, in community cultural divide where the people you live closest to are also the people you hate the most. It's like it's just got a different like feel to it in that way.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with all that. It's about, you know, specifically in like the example I thought of was like the Pony Express, the 30 for 30 about SMU. One of the things I really learned watching that like years ago when it aired was how the old what's the name of the old the Big Eight, right?
Yeah.
In Texas, how it was like Baylor, Houston, SMU, A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, and they're all like very close to each other geographically. And they are all just die hard for their teams, and they absolutely hated, like you said, hating your neighbor. Like the people who are literally 2 doors down from you, they wear a different color, and they think they are completely different. They are completely different people than you as a Houston fan or you as a Baylor fan or anything like that. And also true in Florida. And I would say the other thing too is like you have the people, it's almost like a high school football in this way where you have these relatively small communities who just don't really have a ton. This is my experience growing up in the South is I don't really have an NFL team because I live in Pensacola, Florida. The closest team's the Saints. I don't really care about the Saints. The next closest would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. You know, it's like I don't really have a connection to Jacksonville either. But, you know, when I would go to Tallahassee, I mean, or I would go to Tuscaloosa, I mean, like that's the show in town. There's really not much else.
So like
going on.
You're from the Panhandle and you're a Miami fan and you went to Florida State?
Yes.
I'm learning.
Am I unique?
I already just like I'm very intrigued by this, and like that's not something you could say about like other sports where you could just say where you're from and the team you root for, and I'm like something strange and interesting happened here.
Yeah, I did. Would you like to know why I'm a Miami fan? Like
sure,
the only reason why it started?
I'd love to hear both of your reasons.
Well, Kathleen's a Florida State fan for like a very, very traditional reasons. I actually, hold on. So her parents went there. She grew up going to Florida State games every year. I mean, they were always good. So it's like a relatively easy team to root for. The height of, you know, the end of the Bobby Bowden years into the good Jimbo years, you know, there was never really a bad team fielded. But that's where I come in because I'm a Miami fan. I've watched several bad teams they fielded. But from my memory, this must have been in the mid 2000s. I was, let's say, 4 or 5 years old. I just have this very distinct memory of watching TV, and I want to say Miami was playing UNC because I remember the colors, and I just remember thinking those are like really cool colors.
They're cool colors. That's a big mistake. You got hooked by the colors.
They're cool colors, and the logo, the old Hurricane logo, is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, UNC had cool colors too.
Definitely.
No, they did.
That's what I was
they
thinking.
did. Sure. Just something about the green and the green and orange really drew me in. It also, what I was gonna say was what makes this even funnier is my parents are diehard Alabama fans, diehard.
Very true.
But that's not cool. Like I want to be a rebellious middle schooler. I think I was in the 4th or 5th grade when I really started paying attention to Miami and like being a diehard. But like, man, you know, like I'm watching Greg McElroy and I'm watching Mark Ingram and I'm watching those insane Marcel Darius, you know, big Mount Cody, watching these Alabama teams just dominate every week. I'm like, what's the fun in that?
And you're like, I got to get me some Ja'Cory Harris.
I gotta have, dude, Travis Benjamin. Like, that's my boy. I was talking to someone last night. I was wearing this Miami shirt last night, and he was like, "You're a Miami fan?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what year are you born?" He said, "1998." He goes, "Ooh." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a fair reaction."
Yeah, you missed that classic person born in the 1990s experience of feeling like you've missed a good thing and you're just getting in on the decay and world falling apart experience.
Yeah, I would totally. And I think also what really hurt my fandom is, so specifically, I like really started paying attention in 2009 because Labor Day, Florida State, Miami, they play that classic game. You know, I want to say, was it EJ Manuel incomplete pass at like the 5-yard line at the very end? They win by 1 score. That game really locked me in. But what happened like 4 months later is the U came out, was the second or third 30 for 30. And I watched that. I'm like, oh my God, what if this happened again? Like, it could happen again.
and
It has not happened again.
Looking at my watch, it hasn't happened yet.
No. 2017 was a cruel tease. I honestly wish that wouldn't have even happened. I think it gave me a little too much hope. They say hope's what kills you. But you know, you gotta move on. So that's I can't take enough Miami talk, even though there's a very bad Miami insult stat I'm about to say. So one of the things that a few of our listeners are very into is, you know, I think we have a lot of casual sports fans, but they're not specifically diehards into the sport. One of the things about the sport is there's way too many damn teams. So like you have to almost make it your job to like know the coaching hires and players going which way. So as far as a team that throughout the year you think will be let's say a profitable Vegas team, just one team that they might not play. It's a tough question. But in terms of like a team that I think you think might outperform Vegas expectations, something like that, what's one team that our viewers can look at just on a week-to-week basis and just kind of have their eye on?
That's a great question. I
have the 5 most and least profitable teams in 22, if you're curious.
Who is the most and least?
Would you like to know the least profitable team?
Let me hear it.
It's Miami. Last year.
Yeah, that means it's time for
they went 2-10.
It's time for the rebound. It's time for the.
Yeah, I mean, it can only go up.
I'll say this: I'm not planning on doing a lot of betting while I'm out on the road, just because like different states have different things. But
Of course.
today I on the way to the airport, I flew to Nashville and I rented a car here. It was a lot cheaper than renting a car in New York. I decided to just fire off like 5 like college football futures bets just so I have a thing to care about.
Okay.
And I like Oregon State to win the Pac-12 and
Whoa.
yeah, UTSA to win the American in their first year in the conference, and I had one other that I liked. I bet the under on my beloved Northwestern Wildcats winning 3 games. I don't think they're going to pull it off because they have had a lot of things going on.
Yeah. I think my original email was like, we're gonna do like a fun guide to college football. So I expected very little Northwestern talk during that time because there's not
It's
a
the
lot of fun
least
things
fun
going
thing.
on over there.
It's the least fun thing. It's like a combo of bad football and bad vibes, which, I think the great thing about college football is you generally either get entertainment or vibes, and Northwestern's 0 for 2 right now.
That's tough.
Well, the Lean Show will be rooting for him regardless. We'll add him to our rooting list.
You don't need that in your life.
I'll explain later, Kathleen. They had some no-nos happen over there.
Ouch. We hate that.
Anyway, I love the Oregon State bet. I love the DJU 2023 redemption story.
I think the thing I think college football is just changing so much right now. Obviously, like, that's not a profound thing to say that conferences are all changing teams and stuff, and like, we're losing so many things that are like, of the things we just said about like the regionality of the sport and stuff like that. And that's part of why I'm so excited to get out and do this ridiculous project this year, to see all of these like cultures and places before things change. And no school is getting shafted more than Oregon State and Washington State. They're my two teams that I like. I want good things for them, and they've been abandoned, and I need them to kick everybody's ass while they still can.
Yeah, it's the last dance for those two.
It's the last dance.
One last ride. Okay, awesome. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up with. I would be remiss if I didn't ask at least one question about the team's sake, who our logo and many of our listeners are fans of, the Florida State Seminoles. So the only real question about them I had is, a lot of people, obviously expectations are very high. The win total in Vegas is, I think, 9.5. I think if you talk to FSU fans, they'd find that almost disrespectful, because I think the expectation is at least 10-2. So I guess the question would be, regardless of what happens in week one, because I mean, as you and I both know, like, week one's kind of a crapshoot in general. I mean, neither FSU or LSU played particularly great last year.
That was a
FSU
great week one game last year.
The schlock was ridiculous. I mean, the multiple missed extra points to lose a game is unbelievable. But I guess, in terms of not a diehard Florida State fan who might have some heightened expectations, from an objective look, going into 24, what would be a successful season for Mike Norvell and the Noles in 23?
I mean, it feels like I kind of have more faith, honestly, in Florida State than Clemson right now, which feels weird to say after the last 10 years. Pretty much everything post Jimbo. But I don't know. If I had to pick between them, I would pick Florida State to win the ACC over Clemson. But I mean, you're asking what will make a successful season. I still feel just like getting back to that level where, like, Florida State is expected to be in those games, is a win. I tend to be a little bit more like lenient about teams, like,
sure.
I tend to not be like, oh, you have to win the ACC championship or bust, but like, I feel like that opportunity is totally there, and that alone is a really good sign. And I mean, you want to make the most with Jordan Travis, so I think they could do it. I assume that you're both going to say, of course they're going to do it, and it would be embarrassing if they
Go
didn't.
Noles.
Well, I'm
They
not
better.
actually a Florida State fan, so I honestly
That's a
lean
lie.
more towards.
You're a little
I
bit of a
mean, are you
fan.
gonna tell me who I like and don't like? You know,
I think I
like
am. I think I am.
I graduated from Florida State, but I think the fandom ends there. I think my other fandom that I've put a lot more time and blood, sweat, and tears into negates that one. But still, regardless, I think the transfer portal has been so particularly great to FSU this year that I don't, especially with going into 24, they're not in the Big Ten or the SEC. Who knows if they can keep up such a pace in the portal because the competition is going to be so much larger. So I think personally, this is the best chance they'll have at the playoff, unless there's a lot of recruiting buzz right now for FSU in 24 and 25. So maybe they just have a couple great classes and reload and they're fine. But I think this is the roster that the program has been looking at for a couple years,
Yeah.
and then they even just added to it with getting Verse last year and Coleman this year. I think this is make or break. I mean, people forget in 21, they lost to Jacksonville State. Also, by the way, we went to high school with the guy who caught the Hail Mary at Jacksonville State. Fun fact. But going into, after that and after the start in 21, people were, just about ready to fire him. And he turned it around in 22, was a success relatively. I just don't know how much patience the program's going to have if they are not at least if they lose the ACC championship, it would have to be like a classic against Clemson. Like if they lose, and like a very close game, I should say at least. Like if they lose that game decidedly, like let's say like it's like a 2017 Miami situation where they just get embarrassed. And I don't think that's going to happen because this team's far better than that Miami team. But I think expectations are going to be a little unrealistic this year, for sure, just because Florida State fans are so anxious to finally get back to where they think they deserve to be. But yeah, I see the Zoom's got less than 1 minute.
Yeah, I gotta go hop on to something else.
Totally. Well, really appreciate the time, Rodger. They can follow you at Rodger on Twitter. You have a Patreon as well, Road Rodge. Fuck. And that's me not paying close enough attention to how much time was left on the Zoom call. So as I was trying to outro him, it got cut off. So yeah. Thank you, Rodger, for coming on. Follow Rodger at Rodger on Twitter and Rodger Sherman on Instagram. And Road Rodge is his Patreon. And yeah, so sorry about that. I will work better at it in the future.